Hello and welcome to NoCap Game Design. In this episode, we look at the 8th level of Halo Combat Evolved, titled Two Truths. This level, like some previous levels, immediately starts with an encounter. This is an exciting way to pull a player into the core gameplay loop, and is especially potent after the long opening cutscene that this level features. Something noteworthy here, notice the Master Chief has an assault rifle in the cutscene, but in the game he gets a plasma pistol. I wonder why. It was clearly an intentional decision by the devs to do this, so they must have a good reason for it. There are a few reasons that I can see. First, this is level 8, one of the hardest levels in the game. Starting the player off with a below average weapon like this may make the player feel uncomfortable or underprepared, which could be a design goal of this challenging level. On the other hand, the secondary weapon is the shotgun, perhaps the most powerful weapon in the game, especially for dealing with the Flood. So perhaps the devs wanted to balance things out, start the player with a little good and bad. Moving on to the level itself. This level should be familiar to both a player and to you, the viewer. In fact, it's the same map as level 5, Assault on the Control Room. Reusing content like this could be considered lazy, but there are a lot of good reasons to do this too. From an academic perspective, this is an excellent opportunity to analyze the differences between level 5 and level 8. What's changed and why? Why did the devs decide to include this map twice? First, from a technical perspective, reusing assets like this saves storage space, which allows for nicer textures, longer cutscenes, faster development time. But this is NoCap game design, so I will focus on the design perspective. The first noticeable difference is that the player is going from back to front. The quote-unquote forward direction has been flipped from level 5. Now, this seems minor, but it has a fairly major implication. In level 5, the player had to assault a heavily defended area, working their way along defended bridges, up barricades, and basically fight into a well-fortified position. But now, in level 8, the player starts with the high ground, so simply making the player go through the level backwards would not be as challenging. Additionally, it would be fairly boring. The player has already seen this stuff. There is no more exploration, just backtracking. So the devs give the player an entirely different goal, complete with new areas to explore. Instead of storming an enemy stronghold like in level 5, here in level 8, the player has a few capture the flag style checkpoints that they need to activate. This is similar to level 2, where the player has to traverse a large map, hold a series of positions, while fighting off waves of aliens. Also similar to level 2, the devs give the player a vehicle to get from point to point. But here, it is a new vehicle. The Banshee. Technically, the Banshee was introduced back in level 5, but only if the player was quick and could get their hands on one. But the developers have to be very careful with the Banshee. It is a tool that the player can use to get themselves soft-locked, or stuck. Consider here, suppose I accidentally drop my Banshee off the side of this landing strip. Now I'm stuck up here. I can't get back down. If I jump, I will die. There's only one way for me to go. After dealing with the encounter in there, which I will talk about in a moment, and returning, the devs have spawned in a new Banshee. If this spawn wasn't here, I'd have to restart the entire level. This is good design. The specific lesson to learn here is that, as a developer, you must be looking out for opportunities for a player to get stuck, and put in countermeasures to prevent it from happening. Playtesting will help a lot here. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What was the encounter inside of the mountain? I'll let Cortana explain.
The generator, but you'll need to walk into the beam to trigger it. The EMP blast should neutralize the generator, but it will also drain your shields and leave you vulnerable until they recharge.
Basically, an ambush. She wants us to jump into this energy beam, which will deplete our shields and get out alive. But of course, when the player is in this weakened state, the enemies attack. Now, there are two of these encounters in this level, one here and one later with the Flood, but it seems like the devs are saying that a typical ambush isn't enough anymore. This is level 8 out of 10, so they make it even more challenging by draining the player's health, then springing the ambush. Is it diabolical? Yes, but it goes to show that there are more ways to increase the challenge of your game than just by throwing more enemies at the player. Reducing resources also work. In this case, the resource is health, but generally any resource like ammo, cover, allies, even time can be limited to increase the challenge. In your game, identify where the challenge comes from. If there's one primary source of challenge that you often rely on, that's okay, but your game might get stale. Consider building in new encounters, different challenges, and then mixing and matching these challenges together. Here, again, the devs surround the player with enemies and drain their health. Sometimes letting your inner evil villain show is good game design. Changing topics. Back in level 5, I talked about the human weapons and how they require ammunition, and used this as an excuse to segue into talking about supply drops throughout the world. Well, I'd like to talk briefly about the alien weapons this time. I'll start with the Needler, perhaps the most unique of the alien weapons in this game. Notice the bullets track towards the target and curve around corners. It also shoots bright pink projectiles. Now, all the alien weapons do shoot neon-colored bullets, but the Needler is pink, and in a dark, gritty game like Halo, it stands out a little bit more. It's also got a cool melee action, stabbing the spikes into a target. And if enough bullets land on a target, they'll explode. But it doesn't work against everyone. A Jackal's shields will easily deflect a Needler shot. Now, I think the Needler is well designed. It has strengths and weaknesses. Its homing bullets are good in close to medium range with lots of cover, but the slow speed of the shot doesn't work so well at long range. The exploding projectiles work well versus stronger enemies, notice this elite getting destroyed, but again, it has little to no effect versus the Jackals. As discussed in previous episodes, having diverse and unique content like this is a good thing. Changing the fundamental mechanics and affordances of each weapon produces a much more rich experience than simply changing the damage numbers or the rate of fire. For example, this plasma pistol weapon cannot be reloaded. That is a fundamental difference, a unique element of that weapon. If I wanted to get more bullets for this gun, I have to find and pick up a totally different instance of the gun, dropped by some unfortunate alien or purposely placed by the devs into the world. That's weird, that's different, it's unique and engaging, forcing a player to pay attention to the ground and forage for their next gun. Now, that's probably a bit of a weakness, but it also has some unique strengths too. It is very good at destroying a Jackal's shield, and like the Needler, the plasma pistol also has a unique bullet mechanic, the charge shot, a single powerful hit that kills most things. Okay, maybe not an instant kill, but still powerful. And finally, another thing that makes it unique is that it has a click-to-fire ability. Simply holding down the trigger won't keep shooting. Overall, it's unique, and that's the important part. I am sure there are some situations where the plasma pistol is useful, but I can't help but think about Mark Rosewater's famous quote, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, "Bad cards make good cards good." Sometimes adding a bad weapon will make the good ones shine. It might not be that good in combat, but the plasma pistol is unique, and that is the important part. On the other hand, the plasma rifle solidly lands on the good side of things, or at least it's effective at killing the aliens. I've been using the term unique fairly loosely so far. The plasma pistol and plasma rifle do share a lot of common elements and mechanics. Both cannot be reloaded. The player must pick up a replacement gun if they run low on ammo. Both are effective at dealing with alien shields, but the plasma rifle has a few extra things going for it compared to the pistol. First, the plasma rifle is just more powerful. The bullets do more damage, it has a higher rate of fire, you can hold down the trigger to keep shooting, which makes it easier to use. It's just a good gun. But more importantly, from a design perspective, the plasma rifle feels good to use. This is more of an art than a science, but designing content that feels good is what all designers should be striving for. So why does this gun feel so good to use? The first reason, as I said earlier, is it's powerful. It's good at doing its job of killing aliens. A player will associate this gun with making progress or winning the encounter, and so they associate this gun with success, and that is a good feeling. Next, only the elites use this gun. The player will know that the elites are the most important enemies on the battlefield. They're tough, powerful, smart, and, for lack of a better term, they're elite. Using their tools will make the player themselves feel tough, powerful, and smart too. Again, this is the player associating the gun with positive attributes. The developers have been consistent about associating this gun with powerful enemies, and a player will pick up on this, eventually. And finally, the gun has amazing artistic design. It just looks cool. The sleek, clean blue casing pulsing with glowing plasma. Importantly, the design of the gun also matches the design of the elite aliens themselves, further reinforcing that this is a tool of the elite. Taking a step back now and looking at these three guns together, from a game design perspective, when making a game about aliens, the player will want to use the alien technology, and they are expecting it to be good, or at least feel alien. The Needler has homing shots that explode. The plasma rifle and pistol can't be reloaded, which forces a player to pay attention to different things when using them. And the plasma rifle is the stuff of sci-fi legends, a powerful alien weapon with phasers set to kill. This is all good game design. Alien weapons should feel alien and afford different mechanics to the player compared to the human counterpart weapons. And I personally recommend at least one of the alien techno gadgets should be extra powerful. I can't really express why I think that's a good game design decision. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if there are any good games that feature weak alien technology, or if you have a good reason that explains why aliens should have better guns than humans. Moving on. A question I often receive is, why would a game designer make diverse content? What benefits does it have? And it's a good question, and I always encourage deeper questioning about design like this. From a player's perspective, having lots of unique content in a game helps prevent the gameplay loop from going stale. If every enemy was the same, or there was only one type of gun, then things would get boring pretty quickly. With more types of content, the player is able to explore larger and richer play spaces, which in turn is fun, and in turn, good game design. But we've talked about the player's perspective before on this channel, and today I want to focus on the developer's perspective for this question. Diverse content enables a developer to make even more content. This is best illustrated with an example. Take this Banshee. There are no other vehicles like the Banshee in the game, for the simple fact that the Banshee can fly. This unique mechanic of flight affords some strengths and weaknesses to the Banshee, and the developers seize on these strengths and have designed an encounter that plays to them. Notice the very first encounter that the developers have exposed the flying player to. It's a bridge, and a poorly defended one at that. A Banshee will naturally dominate this encounter because of its unique ability to fly, while something like a Scorpion tank, for example, would not be nearly as effective. This encounter is designed specifically for the Banshee to dominate. To go into a little detail of why the Banshee is good specifically, there are a lot of places for a Banshee to fly. It's a 3D game, and you have full coverage over this exposed, elevated bridge, above, below, and to the sides. But there's not a lot of places for the aliens to hide, which would allow the Banshee to have superior positioning and range for any target on the bridge. It's clear the devs have asked themselves, what encounter would the Banshee naturally be good at resolving? And an exposed bridge makes total sense. The encounter is also acting as a tutorial for the Banshee, a fairly low challenge environment for a player to get used to the new vehicle and controls. Later in the game, the next Banshee encounter is on top of this building here. Again, the developers have crafted this encounter that plays to the strengths of the Banshee. But every piece of content should have strengths and weaknesses. The Banshee is no exception. In this encounter, the devs begin to point out one of the Banshee's weaknesses. It's weak versus explosives. On top of this building, there are a bunch of anti-air units, stationary guns, and rocket launchers. These things deal massive damage to a fragile Banshee. So this is an encounter which showcases the strengths and exploit the weaknesses of the Banshee. A bit of a mixed bag. And finally, in the third and last Banshee encounter, the devs are just exploiting the Banshee's weaknesses. As we descend, the next destination point is in a tunnel. Now, flying is not an indoor activity. There is little to no maneuverability, the anti-air guns are well fortified, and everything on the ground is gunning to shoot it down. Additionally, being forced to fly close to the ground means the player doesn't have much reaction time to dodge the rockets lobbed at them. Okay, with that example out of the way, back to the original question. Why should a game designer make diverse content? What benefits does that have? Well-designed and diverse content should have inherent strengths and weaknesses, but these game assets don't live in a vacuum. A skilled developer can take assets like this and craft a series of encounters around it. For example, the Halo devs took the Banshee and created 3 engaging encounters, one that played to the strengths of the asset, one that exploited its weaknesses, and one encounter that was a mix of both. So diverse content helps a developer make more content. Instead of rehashing the same play loop and encounters from level 5, the developers put in extra effort to mix things up, introduce fresh, new, and unique content that will inherently produce fresh, new, and unique encounters. In summary, diverse content can help bootstrap the creativity process, allowing a developer to fill out a game with custom and quality encounters, which in turn encourages a player to actually engage with the new content, thus introducing fresh challenges, skills, and play loops to the game. Overall, this level, 2 Betrayals, is a tough level, but Halo is a tough game, and after this, there are only 2 more episodes in the series. I think it's important to point out here that the devs are still introducing new content and providing tutorials this late in the game. In your games, don't be afraid to provide the player with new toys and training on how to use it, even on the last few levels. In the next episode, we return to the alien ship Truth and Reconciliation, but this time it's under new management. I'll see you there.